Lightshock software.
You got flames in your eyes, burning with rage into the night, into the night. You realize there's no danger with me out your side, into the night, into the night. Do you wonder who am I? Feel just so far, who makes a stand against the evil starlight? I'm a finding spirit every day. I'm a finding spirit. I'm on your way. Oh yeah. You got flames in your eyes, burning with rage into the night, into the night. You realize there's no danger with me at your side, into the night, into the night, into the night.
Fighting Spirit, the Supreme Warriors Tournament.
Hello and welcome to a look at Fighting Spirit for the Amiga, a game that was made by Lightshock software and released by Neo. I should mention that I am covering the AGA version of this game. I have mentioned before that if an AGA version exists, I will always cover that particular version if possible. The foundation of Fighting Spirit is very heavily inspired by games like Street Fighter and King of Fighters and whatever else they might be called. And anyone who's a fan of those kinds of games will quickly see the similarities between this particular title and those kind of games, down to the amount of characters available, their background stories, the overarching plot, and that kind of things. But what makes this game somewhat special is, first and foremost, the options available. You have the option to set the difficulty and amount of rounds and amount of credits and that kind of stuff, which is perfectly par for the course, I would say. But you also have an option to select a deathmatch type, which removes the rounds of a match and instead have one bar that will move towards the opponent as you hit the opponent and towards you when your opponent hits you. And if it ever goes fully right, then you knock your opponent out, and if it ever goes fully left, your opponent knocks you out. And if the timer runs out, whoever's made the most progress towards their opponent will win. Besides that, you also have the option to disable stun, which of course in fighting games, if you take multiple hits in a row, your character will be staggered, and if you don't like that option, you can remove it. You also have the option to remove special moves, which is somewhat unique for this game as far as I know at least, and I will get back to that later on. Further to that, you have the option to play turbo mode, and maybe it's because I'm an old man by now, but I do find it a bit gimmicky because the gameplay is at a speed where you're basically spamming and hoping that you manage to beat your opponent. Someone significantly more skilled than me, or just a bit more skilled than me, can possibly do better, but I like the option being there, but I didn't enjoy it, love it, or anything. I mean, more options is always a good thing, but yeah, it is what it is. let's cover the technical side of things. From a graphical point of view, there's incredibly little to complain about when it comes to this game. Seeing that it is inspired by arcade games, this is likely the most arcadey looking versus fighter game on the Amiga. The overall quality is very, very high, color choices and all that kind of stuff is excellent. The graphical style may or may not be to your liking, but there's no denying that the graphical quality is very high. Backgrounds and all that kind of stuff is very detailed, and everything is definitely looking like it's been crafted with a lot of attention and care for detail. The fighting between the fighters can sometimes feel a bit stiff, but not to the point where I would make any complaints about it. The sound side of things. The sound effects are perfectly fitting for the game. I always find it incredibly hard to say something clever about sound effects, because unless they are sticking out like a sore thumb or completely misplaced, I suppose they're good. I mean, the sound effects are definitely good in this game. The growls, the yells, and whatever else, sounds of punches, kicks, and that kind of stuff fits the game extremely well. Both the graphics and the sound in general has a very, very arcadey feel to it. And then of course we reach the music, which the intro tune is a very high quality tune, song even, and very, very catchy, and sets you in the mood for some good old fashioned fighting. And the general quality of the music I can't fault in any way, shape or form. The compositions are enjoyable and again very, very arcadey in their nature, and yeah, thumbs up from my side when it comes to the sound and, for that matter, the graphics of this game. The controls are a bit of a different story though, because you have the option to play this game with 1-button joystick, 2-button joystick, or a CD32 pad, which of course has 4 buttons. And that's where we run into a bit of problems. 1-button joystick is virtually unplayable, because you have a certain amount of punches and kicks. And with a 1-button joystick, obviously you only have 1 button, so you can't relegate either punches or kicks to a second button that's not there. So the game is sort of trying to compensate a bit by assigning punches and kicks to diagonals, and you find yourself in a position where you really desperately trying to jump forward and the game decides that you are trying to kick instead. It feels incredibly awkward and not particularly pleasant, and it's perhaps a bit harsh to say that it's virtually unplayable with a 1-button joystick, but it's not particularly pleasant. And if I was to rate this game only from a 1-button joystick perspective, I would likely knock it down quite a few marks. It gets a bit better with 2-button joystick, but ultimately, for the most enjoyable experience, you would need a CD32 pad with 4 buttons. Looking at the game as a whole, there is a few things that has to be mentioned. The overall story of the game and the different characters is a bit of a weak experience, but the game is obviously inspired by arcade fighters and that kind of stuff, and they're not exactly known for having Tolkien quality stories. But the writing in this game is at times very, very cringe-worthy. The typos can be expected, but the phrasing and the way it is written is a bit on the clumsy side. And I think that there has been some unfortunate translations, not so much in the direct translations, but the fact that they've been translated directly, meaning, of course, that certain phrases can possibly seem more offensive than I am sure the developer ever intended for them to appear like. Fighting against the computer can be mixed bag because the special moves which you can disable, and if you do so, it becomes he who spams most wins. The computer is incredibly happy about using special moves, and the special moves available to the player can feel extremely obnoxious to activate because the timing can be very, very tight. And when you are trying to fend off against a computer that will throw special attack after special attack after special attack after you, it is not particularly pleasant. XCOM acquiring the Amiga will turn out to be a scenario equivalent to an explorer being saved from a rabbiting tiger by a group of cannibals. I bought an XCOM Amiga 1200 and an accelerator board with an old 40 megahertz chip and 8 megs RAM and all that kind of stuff. Not because I believed in XCOM, but because I believed in the Amiga. And it is quite clear to see, despite its shortcomings, that Lightshock software definitely also believed in the Amiga and made likely the best versus fighter arcadey game for the system. On that note, thanks for watching, take care, see you next time, bye bye.